Hello and welcome to the news, everyone. I am Chuck Davidson, and here with us tonight is Daniel Tomsic to talk about the latest film that he has just seen. We go live now with Daniel Tomsic. Thanks, Chuck. Well, recently I saw the film Bombshell, directed by Jay Roach, starring Charlize Theron, Nicole Kidman, Margot Robbie, and John Lithgow, based on the true story of how Roger Ailes, the founder and CEO of Fox News, was accused of sexual harassment, and this lawsuit caused a great scandal at the network, so great that eventually more women came forward, and this led to Roger Ailes being forced to resign from Fox News altogether. So this film was written by Charles Randolph, who was the co-writer of The Big Short, for which he won an Oscar for. And Bombshell felt like a companion piece to that movie. It's shot in a very similar way, very mockumentary style, breaking the fourth wall occasionally. But here's the difference. The Big Short took a very satirical approach. And although Bombshell does have a few funny lines here and there and does poke fun at Fox News now and then, because of how Bombshell is directed and how it's acted, it never loses focus that the whole issue of sexual harassment is a very serious issue. You don't want to make fun of something like this. But let's talk about the acting. The acting, I felt, was the high point of this film. Every single actor in this movie gave a great performance. Charlize Theron, who plays Megyn Kelly, she was just unrecognizable. I mean, you put a picture of her as the character and the real Megyn Kelly together, you couldn't tell them apart. The makeup work is just well done. So Megyn Kelly was an anchor at Fox News. She too was sexually harassed by Roger Ailes 10 years prior to the events of the film. She was very pivotal in the downfall of Roger Ailes, because when she came forward with her own story about sexual harassment, that pretty much was the nail on the coffin for Roger, because she was so popular and so powerful. And this film did a good job at showing Megyn Kelly as this strong, confident woman, while at the same time she is extremely vulnerable and conflicted with her past. She sees the allegations that are being brought against him, and she's conflicted. It's because of this guy that she got to be where she is at right now. She wouldn't have gotten anywhere without his help. And now she sees him going through this scandal, and it's like, I don't know if I should speak up. I mean, the same thing happened to me, but I don't know. That struggle, I felt, was very well portrayed by Charlize Theron. And John Lithgow as Roger Ailes, again, the makeup was phenomenal. I mean, it's incredible. The makeup is going to win an Oscar for this film, I can guarantee you that. But what was very interesting about how John Lithgow portrayed him was that he was able to capture a certain duality to his character. Because when the lawsuit happened and all these allegations were brought against him, there were those at Fox who actually defended him. Men and women. They looked up to Roger. They saw him as a father figure, as a lovable guy. And even Megyn Kelly says in the film, I actually love Roger, because they actually did have a good professional relationship. And when you see John Lithgow as Roger, there were certain moments when you thought, yeah, I could certainly look up to this guy. He seemed like a good leader. He also felt like a guy who would have your back at certain times. So yeah, I could see why people would defend this guy, while at the same time, this film does not excuse him one bit. You clearly see this guy is a monster, and what he does and what he asks for from these women and how he takes advantage of them, he really is portrayed as doing something criminal. In the film, there is a character that Margot Robbie plays, Kayla. She is a composite character. She's fictional, but she is the combination of a bunch of different women who had similar situations with Roger. There was one scene in which Kayla approaches Roger in his office and pretty much tries to sell herself, tries to convince him that she would be good on television. And Roger takes advantage of the situation. He makes her get up, give him a turn, and he even asks her to lift her skirt up, almost to the point where you could see her private parts. That scene was very disturbing. And Margot Robbie, I mean, you could see the confusion and the fear in her eyes. It was a very stressful situation. And for me as an audience member, it felt tense. It was very uncomfortable, and I cannot imagine how much worse a woman in that situation could have felt. She was a victim. Margot Robbie's character has an incredible arc in this film. She starts out as this dreamy-eyed kid who comes from a conservative background and wants to make her family proud by working at Fox. It's the only job that she has ever wanted. She's very passionate to work at Fox. But then she has her eyes opened for the first time. She is subjugated to so much shame, and she is not the same. afterwards. And then there's Gretchen Carlson, played by Nicole Kidman. She was harassed constantly, and she's one of those women who actually tries to do something about it, and instead of getting help or support, she is met with accusations of being a man-hater, being difficult, and in the end she actually gets fired. This is why a lot of women never came forward, because they put their careers on the line if they did. It's such a cruel and unfair world for them. And this film, I felt like accurately portrays the circumstances of a woman who feels kind of trapped. You're forced to, deal with this day after day. And, you don't know what to do. And you have nowhere else to go. It's hard. One of my favorite scenes in that film regarding Nicole Kidman's character was that when she filed a lawsuit, she was told that other women had to come forward in order to make her case stronger. And then when she realizes that she had no support whatsoever, she was heartbroken. And there was a line that she says in the film, and I'm paraphrasing, but it went something like, "I thought there would be someone." I totally related to that moment because, I've never had to deal with sexual harassment personally, but I know what it feels like to be left without any support at all. It's very disheartening, and you feel so alone, and you just don't know how you're gonna win. That to me was very powerful, and Nicole Kidman just nailed it. She didn't have as much screen time as the other characters did, but she was very vital, and they did get her point across, I felt. There are hardly any real big flaws about this film. There are a couple of times when the characters broke the fourth wall, and there are some scenes that it totally worked. Others, maybe not as much, but it wasn't a huge deal. In the end, I felt like this was a very, very well done film. It's well acted, well directed. It makes you think and also ponders on why and how women can be so complacent in such a corrupt establishment. I think this film is a definite must-see. I was actually surprised that this film was not getting more positive reviews, and I have a feeling that it's because of who they're depicting and the fact that it's taking place at Fox News. I didn't find this film political one bit. Yes, they did address a lot of Fox's politics and their conservative values, but that's the thing. That's just an establishing thing. You have to address it because that's where the story takes place. That's just a fact. But it doesn't try to push anything at you. It just simply shows you what women had to go through, the humiliation and the indignity that they felt while going through it, and how they rose above it, or how they can rise above it. As much as it's entertaining to watch, it's also very educational. It's a real conversation starter. People can use this film to discuss why sexual harassment has been prevalent all these years and why still not a lot of change has happened. And this is an example of how change can happen. And that's what I feel people should take away from this film. When I saw this film, I was actually amazed, knowing what they went through and how things are run at Fox, that change happened. Maybe not a lot, but they did manage to take away Roger Ailes' power. And that's saying something. He was one of the most powerful people in news. And these people finally said, enough is enough, I'm going to break my silence, and I'm going to tell the truth. And the truth prevails. I feel like this film will give lots of people hope that change is possible. You just have to speak up. Because of its importance and its relevance and its entertaining value, screw it. I'm going to give this movie an A+. I was riveted from start to finish. It really was one of my favorite films of the year. Anyway, that's my review on Bombshell. Back to you in the studio, Chuck. All right, thanks, Daniel. And thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you again next time. Good night. Did that sound good?